And hello, welcome to Open, the one and only show opening the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I am Daren, Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough and New York City. Coming up, we'll learn about a leadership council enabling individuals to contribute resources to help build a stronger community. Afterwards, we'll discuss the signs of the holiday blues and some tips on how you can address these challenges. And then we'll talk about the disparities happening in missing person cases. The numbers alarming. More details later on in the show. And finally, we'll learn how one organization is highlighting the importance of recognizing and celebrating public school teachers. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I am Daren Jaime. You're now watching Open, a live program bringing the Bronx to New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network as Open is being broadcast simultaneously on MNN's channels. You can stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV and, of course, our website at BronxNet.org. Well, some things have been going on throughout the course of the past week. We'll take you through it with some Bronx updates. And we start off with city news. New York City Mayor Eric Adams unveiled Get Stuff Clean Thursday, which is an effort to clean more than 1,000 neglected areas across New York City. The mayor stated, quote, "America's biggest city is going to be America's cleanest city. We're investing more than $14 million in fiscal year alone to participate in the largest cleanup effort in decades. The effort will consolidate citywide cleaning functions across different departments, from sanitation to transportation, all the way to parks." In other news, Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson provided a contribution to help prioritize tech equity in the Bronx Aerospace Academy. Our BronxNet reporter Brittany Schuyler-Aubain brings us the details.
As a part of National Digital Inclusion Week, Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson joined District 8 Superintendent Faya Davis, Bronx Aerospace Academy Principal Jose Zayas, and several students at the school to announce a generous allocation.
We just want to show our love to the Bronx Aerospace High School with an allocation of $163,000.
The allocation will go toward laptops, headsets, Wi-Fi, robotics kits, and 3D printers, which will help set students up for success academically, but will also prepare them for careers in technology, engineering, and aviation. As BP Gibson mentioned, far too often, Black and brown students are at a disadvantage due to a lack of adequate preparation. Now, she is taking the steps necessary to ensure Bronx students are not affected by tech inequalities.
When our students of color are given access and opportunities, they will truly, truly succeed. But unfortunately, that is not always the reality for so many of our young adults.
Clayton Titus, co-founder of the United Youth Aviators, was also in attendance with some of his students to support the allocation and learn more about Bronx Aerospace Academy. Titus mentioned how important the contribution is because the biggest obstacle for potential students is the hefty price tag.
When you have programs like this that'll start these kids based on scholarship, oriented, then it really helps them break that barrier. And I believe that's where the barrier comes from us in the inner city community for Black and brown, like you say, because we don't have the money to get exposed to this industry. It's a very costly one.
Bronx Aerospace Academy, located in the Gun Hill section of the Bronx, focuses its curriculum on technical training with concentrations in engineering, aviation, and computer science. United Airlines captain and instructor with the United Youth Aviators, Alan Forgenet, mentioned that some of the students already have their private pilot license, which he says is admirable.
Now that I'm here, and these two gentlemen have devoted so much time and effort to creating this program, I think that this next generation of students becoming adults can pursue this career in a very, successful manner.
As the borough president works to continue breaking accessibility barriers, the future of flight is in great hands. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Albane.
And thank you, Brittany. That is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We have to take a quick break, but we do have more open when we return.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches, vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, backpack kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
You can now watch MNN, Brick TV, QPTV, and SIC TV on BronxNet. Tune in to BX Omni, Channel 67 Optimum, 2133 Fios during most Sunday evenings. We'll show you some amazing content from our friends at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Brick TV in Brooklyn, Queens Public Television, and Staten Island Community Television. Every borough represented in the Boogie Down. Epic partnerships for the ages. And catch our new Next channel, produced in partnership with MNN, 24/7 on BronxNet Channel 952 Optimum and 2138 Fios.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
And welcome back. BronxWorks helps individuals and families improve their economic well-being as well as their social well-being. From toddlers to seniors, they feed, shelter, and teach, as well as support neighbors to build a stronger community. The BronxWorks Leadership Council enables passionate individuals to contribute their resources and help vision to help build a more robust Bronx. Joining us now, we've got BronxWorks Leadership Council Chair, Kate Machan, and then also we've got Development Manager Andrew Lynn. And thank you both for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Hi there. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. And we talk about building a more robust Bronx, and obviously that is what we need, the Bronx to be booming. Talk to us a little bit more about the work that you do, and I'll start off with you first, Kate.
So I'll actually let Andrew talk a little bit first about the BronxWorks more broadly. I can focus in on the Leadership Council, if that's okay.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, BronxWorks is a large social services organization. We work primarily in the Bronx. I think anyone who is familiar with the Bronx will have heard of us or know BronxWorks and the work we do. We have over 50 locations throughout the borough, dozens of programs working with residents of all ages. So we have programs in childcare, youth education, all the way up to senior services, programs that work with new immigrants, legal services, workforce development, community health, nutrition education, homeless services, supportive housing, eviction prevention, pretty much any area you can think of within social services, BronxWorks has a program that does that. We work with over 64,000 Bronx residents each year. And I think in particular, recently, BronxWorks has really taken the helm in helping the borough kind of navigate through major crises like the COVID-19 pandemic, where we shifted our resources and adapted them to help the needs of the community in pretty much every way possible that we could find.
Yeah, and one of those things you have is leadership, and the Leadership Council chair is Kate, and you've got the Leadership Council program. Talk to us about the program and who participates.
Sure. So the Leadership Council is really a collection of committed individuals from in and around New York City, mostly young professionals. And we really bring our time and our knowledge, our connections, and whatever unique skills we have, and we bring that to complement the work of BronxWorks' formal board of directors, really to help support and promote BronxWorks within the Bronx, but also in the larger New York City community. We really want to help BronxWorks, help raise awareness of BronxWorks, so more people are aware of the good work that we're doing, and ideally hope to bring in more fundraising and help BronxWorks form relationships with individuals and with businesses in the community. We really advocate for BronxWorks. We serve as ambassadors. We kind of post to social media, really trying to expand the reach of BronxWorks throughout the community.
Andrew talked a little bit earlier about COVID-19 and some of the things that people have had to really deal with. Talk to me, Andrew, a little bit more about some of the challenges that you guys are having to, deal with, especially now. I mean, it's more than just COVID-19. We talk about inflation, poverty, homelessness. These are all things that a lot of New Yorkers are really contending with. What are your challenges?
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing a lot of those persistent challenges that the Bronx had been facing for many years, like you mentioned, unemployment, low wage growth, food insecurity, housing insecurity. These were persistent challenges that the Bronx had been facing that were exacerbated by the pandemic and are continuing to persist in the current economic environment with inflation. We saw a huge spike in the need for food in particular during the pandemic, which never really subsided. The need for reliable food resources, and in particular nutritious and fresh foods, has remained high within our communities. Also job opportunities, upward mobility, those are always or have been needs of the Bronx. And of course, safe and stable housing. We're always faced with significant evictions and homelessness in the borough, and these are things that we have always been trying to address, and we continue to do so.
Yeah. Kate, the reason I asked that question of Andrew was because these are all things that leaders have to deal with and contend with, right? And so in this leadership program, how much are they taught to deal with current crises and things that people are facing head on?
Yep. So at the Leadership Council, we really focus our efforts on supporting kind of the impact and influence that BronxWorks can have by working on outreach. And we do actually participate also in some of BronxWorks programs. For example, Andrew mentioned the food pantry, the food need, and the various Bronx centers. So we do get in there and get on the ground helping out with those efforts. But we also do a lot of work in trying to kind of maximize the people who are aware of and supporting the BronxWorks. So that's really primarily our goal. But we do have, countless opportunities to become involved depending on, the varying interests and time availability of Leadership Council members. And one of the great things about the group is that everybody can bring their own unique skills. If you have particular kind of social media or like web design skills, we need those. If you have communication skills, we can put those to use. If you're really more of an on the ground kind of person, then we see a lot of those people showing up at the food pantry and helping out to volunteer at those events. So it really runs the gamut. There's a lot of different ways that council members can come in and help contribute to the organization.
How do people apply and get to be a part of this organization?
Yeah, it's easy. So we actually have information about the council available on the website, BronxWorks.org. There's information about the members, about kind of the responsibilities and expectations, and also what members are likely to get out of the opportunity. And there's an application right there online. We encourage anybody who's interested to, find more information online, fill out an application, and then we will have, a conversation and kind of usually a tour, and get people involved who really are committed and want to hit the ground running with us.
Yeah. Andrew, I was going to get Andrew to jump in here and share a little bit, but Andrew, take it away.
I think one of the coolest things about the Leadership Council is just all the options that there are for the group to get involved. Even during COVID-19, for example, the group wanted to help support BronxWorks efforts. So while everyone was social distancing and kind of staying at home, they were still able to organize fundraisers. They did 2 virtual paint and sip events where we had people purchase tickets and join us virtually to kind of paint and follow this artist who also volunteered her time to lead us and paint these incredible pictures that we were all able to put together. And recently, they also organized a comedy night. So these are just really cool ways that the Leadership Council has still been able to have an impact on our organization.
And when we talk about the Leadership Council, when are the applications due by if somebody's thinking about being a part?
Actually, what's beautiful is that we have rolling admissions. So anybody who's interested at any time can check it out and submit an application. We're particularly focused on sort of increasing membership at this time. As everybody knows, it was tough during COVID-19 to do a lot of things. And, some people left the city, other people kind of couldn't stay involved. And so we did have a slight drop in membership, and we're really interested in ramping our membership back up. So now is a great time. But to be perfectly honest, any time is a good time to get involved. And even if you don't, you aren't sure whether you want to get involved, there's lots of ways to be involved with BronxWorks that aren't necessarily the Leadership Council. So check it out, submit an application, and we're sure there's a way for you to be involved. And it has a lot of, it brings a lot of rewards to members in terms of the ability to give back to the community, and also to kind of get involved with other people. It's a great networking opportunity for professionals in the city, and especially for people who really, maybe they were kind of isolated and didn't have that many opportunities to be out and active in the community during the pandemic. Now's a great time to jump back in. We are doing in-person events. As Andrew mentioned, we hosted a comedy event a couple of weeks ago, and we also have the opportunity to participate in a lot of BronxWorks events. We help to plan and participate in their annual gala. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved, and it's really a rewarding opportunity for anybody who wants to pursue it.
I've been covering BronxWorks for more than 2 decades, so I do know the great work that goes on that BronxWorks does, particularly during times like these, as we're preparing for the holiday season, the winter season, boots on the ground, and then now the Leadership Council. So, Kate, thank you so much for being with us. Andrew, thank you so much for being with us, and you guys have a happy holiday.
Thank you so much. You as well.
All right.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Well, for more information, you can visit the website at BronxWorks.org, and then also follow them on Instagram and Twitter at BronxWorks. Don't go anywhere. We got more Open coming up right after this.
Hey, boss. Okay?
I said I'm fine.
Me the bed, see you in the morning. With the first date, Superman, but it wasn't on it. and we lost these.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
STEM is everywhere. Like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that can be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker hordes.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at shecanstem.com.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Welcome back. The winter holidays are typically framed as the most wonderful time of the year, an opportunity for family and celebration, but that isn't the case for everyone. For many, the holidays can also be a trigger of feelings of stress, grief, anxiety, fatigue, and sometimes some negative reflections on the past year. Joining us now to give us some advice on how to address these challenges is the Program Manager for Behavioral Health at VNS Health, Susan Clayton Meyer. And Susan, glad to have you back.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
You know, on one side, the holidays are great, but then on the other side, there's a lot of people who experience the holiday blues, if you will. And we know that it's common and it's prevalent. How common and how prevalent is it in the lives of people?
It's actually very common, and thank you for asking, Daren. You know, we do love the holidays. There's a lot of commercialization around it, which can be fun, and there are a lot of good activities. But in particular, as we age, some things can change, right? We can have more sense of loss, and that can bring about grief and some sadness. We could have some anxiety because our abilities change as we age. So it can be temporary, wrapped around the holidays, but if it builds and grows, it can become more of a problem where we need to seek help. There's studies where they show almost up to 64% of older adults have, and a lot of us, have some feelings of stress and anxiety and depression during the holidays.
That's a huge number. And I think about myself. I mean, I remember Thanksgiving used to be the family holiday, but then after my mom passed away, it didn't become quite the same. Certainly, it's a Thanksgiving, but it's not the same. And you do find these kind of like triggers that you know, you look at the calendar and you're like, oh, you know, what are some of the more common triggers that people are seeing during the holiday season that could set them in this place where, you know, they become emotionally unhealthy?
Thank you, Daren, and my condolences. And you're right, you actually mentioned a very big trigger, and that could be losses that we've had in the last year. And a lot of us have had many losses since the pandemic, but even before. And as we get older, of course, that's going to happen more often. We don't live forever. We have people that move away. We have sons and daughters that get married and might move away. They might have two families, so you need to split the day or have a holiday on a separate day, not on the actual day. We have things that when we've had those losses, there's grief attached. So we want to acknowledge the grief, but not have it take over. And we're looking also at the fact that as we get older, we do also have different physical challenges. So we go into winter, even just the weather can be a challenge for getting around. We might need to change some of our celebrations. We all have favorite years where Thanksgiving was the best or 4th of July celebration was the most fun. Maybe we can't do the Thanksgiving parade anymore, but we can invite people over to watch it in our homes. We have to really turn what seems like a challenge into just creating a new tradition.
Yeah.
And
that's you know true. You have to try to create new memories. That's sometimes a very hard thing to do. But I'll ask about how do I know? How do I know this person is going down a bad rabbit hole, if you will? How do I know that this person? Because you know, I'll ask the question, "Hey, how you feeling?" The answer will be, "Hey, I'm doing good." How you feeling? Good. But we know those are surface answers. So what should I be looking for beyond the surface to get me in a position where I can better help somebody that may be having these holiday blues?
Absolutely. Good question. And there are things we can look for. And we can look for these signs not only in the loved ones that we have in our home, but in loved ones that we have outside of the home, in our neighbors that we care about, right? People that are at centers and programs that we go to, people that we care about at work. We're looking for people who are maybe their way of communicating has changed. They're not talking as much. They're not socializing as often. They're isolating at home. We want to look for changes in sleep habits, changes in eating habits, maybe more irritable, more anxious. And so it's really a lot of the symptoms that you might see with anxiety and depression. It's just not as prolonged. But if these symptoms go for several weeks, then that's when we want to just seek some professional help and look for some more care. Because this can be helped with a lot of friends and supports. We have our family, friends. Sometimes a lot of people do turn to their church, and that is some place to go for help.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's a question that you let me into, because you have the person that's really dealing and navigating these feelings. Sometimes isolation is very prevalent. People want to isolate, they don't want to be bothered, and they become depressed. And some actually do reach out for help. What services are available for people? I think you talked, you know, a couple about, church and a couple other places. But what else can a person do if they're really being hit hard this holiday season?
So thankfully, there are good resources out there, and we know that they can help with this. So when you've reached out to other people, or maybe you just need to reach out to someone that you can speak to anonymously and just tell your problems to, there's several resources. Here in New York City, you can contact NYC Well, which you can contact by their internet, you can text them, you can call them, multiple languages. They have a 24-hour hotline. There's also a new national hotline, 988, that you can call at any time, and they will connect you to your local resources that are very helpful for any kind of emotional well-being. It does not have to be a severe behavioral emotional issue. It can really mean that you just need to talk to somebody and maybe ask some questions. And BNS Health is here for you. We have programs in the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens. Our number, 866-986-7691. And we are here. We have specialized programs for older adults who can often feel the stress and strain of the holidays. And again, that can include physical changes, emotional changes, grief from loss of people we love, or maybe even having to move yourself, as well as the strain of possible finances. These are all important things to recognize and think about. What can you do to make realistic expectations for the holiday, make some changes to create new memories that accommodate the abilities of those you love and will be with.
And for yourself, talk to me about how you're feeling in terms of the number of people that you're seeing this year. Are we seeing a groundswell of more people this year looking for more services with the holidays now approaching?
We actually have had an increase in the last month for people who would like to speak with someone. We do presentations out there, and this is one of our main presentations, is the holiday blues at this time of year, and it's very well received, and a lot of people on the calls and on these presentations talk about their struggles with the holidays. It's real, and it's good to acknowledge it and recognize what you need. recognize what you're in charge of, what you can control, what you can't control. And it's okay to say yes to invitations, and it's also okay to sometimes say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susan, I got to get you to tell me about this here because this is very important. I think also for the holidays, you talk about the person that's really dealing. I want to talk about caregivers real quickly because I think for caregivers, this could also be a very stressful time. So what do you do if you're a caregiver?
So that's a very good question, and caregiving is very difficult. There are a lot of support groups out in the community, and I recommend reaching out. Again, you can reach out to 988 or NYC Well to find a support group. They also can talk about what a lot of people don't know about, which is respite care for those who need round-the-clock care and maybe living at home, because everyone needs a break. And also, as a caregiver, recognize what is really important and what can you skip, right? What you want to make some holiday cookies? Great. Maybe you don't need to make 5 dozen of them this year, right? We want to think about how can people help you. So you want your loved one to be part of it. They can maybe only handle talking to one person at a time. Can you make little invitations? Can you get someone to watch your loved one so you can go out to a celebration for yourself? Make sure you get sleep, that you're eating well, and that you're focusing also on your own emotional well-being, because we know you're focusing on the care of the person you love. But you also need to focus on love for yourself. But reach out. There are groups that can help and give you advice.
Susan Clayton Meyer giving us some great tips. It's great to see you again, and thank you for giving us the necessary resources and the helps that we can really try to navigate through this holiday season. So many people are really facing this challenge, and they don't have to face it alone. So thank you for the much-needed help.
Thank you very much. Look, it challenges all of us. Just be realistic and enjoy what we can.
Right. Indeed.
Thank you.
Good advice there. Well, for more information, you can visit the website at vnshealth.org. Then call them at 866-986-7691. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Fun start time for dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org. Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut
The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
And we are back. According to the FBI's National Crime Information Center database in 2020, 40% of all women and girls reported missing were people of color, which is 100,000 out of 250,000, despite making up just 16% of the population. Now, in February, Congress held a hearing to address what they call a silent epidemic of missing Black, Indigenous, and women of color. Joining us now to share more, we got the digital reporter for Bronx Times, and we got Robbie Sequeira. And Robbie, thank you for being with us. These numbers are literally staggering and alarming. What can you tell us more about discussions and what's being uncovered here?
Yeah, pleasure to be on the show, first of all. It's, I think that there's, at least in the anecdotal conversations I've had with people, as well as talking to, law enforcement, as well as talking to people who have kind of been making this an issue and kind of raising more awareness, is that when women of color go missing, there's kind of an initial issue in the process of kind of the believability. A lot of people were telling us that when, if a woman of color goes missing, oftentimes their disappearance is kind of written under a voluntarily leaving, or it might put some other kind of truancy or other type of things that kind of move it from a missing case to kind of a more they voluntarily left, which really isn't the case in a lot of ways. And also we find that isn't a pattern that's also reflected amongst when a white woman is missing. And that's to say that when anyone goes missing, they should all be found. But we're finding that these discrepancies in terms of people looking into the investigations or the disappearances of women of color is kind of grossly underinvested, or maybe grossly I would say maybe under-resourced for those families when they're looking to uncover someone who's missing.
We hear the word trafficking, and that's a big word that goes on. When I've talked to people in law enforcement, there's an admission trafficking is real. However, I don't think that when we get to the real nitty-gritty that they want to let people know that it's more prevalent than we're actually getting information on. And from working behind this desk, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many people who say, listen, Daren, when it comes to trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, we find predominantly women of color, indigenous people. Those are the persons that are on the front lines of trafficking. But because it's people of color and indigenous, they don't get the kind of media coverage as it would if it was someone else. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would say that for this story, I reached out. The focal point of my story was this indigenous woman who lives in Washington State. She was kidnapped at 6 years old and 36 years old, which is 30 years apart. And she was telling me that, a lot of the women that she was trafficked with were also indigenous women. And to that degree, there is a cycle of violence that happens to women of color that happens at a disproportionate rate towards white women. So looking at that first and seeing that will also kind of translate to possibly being trafficked or possibly being in abusive situations where you are coerced into leaving or coerced into, kind of maybe packing up your life and leaving without a trace. There's an issue that a lot of people talk about where they're not looking at kind of these numbers and kind of correlating that to a disappearance or correlating it to death or correlating it to, any really meaningful preventative measures to protect women of color who go missing. But also another stark issue when it comes to media coverage. We could probably off the top of my head, I can, list, Gabby Petito and Natalie Holloway as two high-profile, high-prominent, women of, white women who were missing. But, their cases were, national profile. There's a Lifetime movie coming out about Gabby Petito. But we see this kind of a swath of women who go missing, especially indigenous women who go missing per capita, which is the highest out of any, group of women. But there's very little in their coverage. There's very little in their efforts to recover them by law enforcement or even the community at large. It kind of just is, this silent epidemic is what they label it as. So there is a lot of truth to that, and I think there's a lot of ways in which people say, hey, this is an issue, that's an issue, but overall it seems to be that when someone is a woman of color and they're going missing, there's often just a lack of attention being put to the reasons why they go disappearing, and then also the recovering of their recovery. Excuse me.
Yeah, bringing correction to this is what a lot of people are talking about. How can you get to the place where we bring correction, where it's more reporting, where it's more resources being deployed? I know Congress is acting. Bring us up to speed as to what Congress is looking to do to be able to address this issue.
Yeah, so one of the big first steps was this, congressional hearing, and you being able to hear the, really the tragic stories from mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers of people who've lost someone who's missing, and really talking about how there's a lot of things that can be done. Now, there's a lot of acts that have been in Congress. There's the Violence Against Women Act, there's a Frederick Douglass Trafficking and Prevention Act, and a lot of these would be looking at kind of resourcing public safety to be able to address the incidents of when someone goes missing, and then figuring out the ways in which they have kind of maybe fallen short of recovering anyone who's missing, but also especially the disproportionate amount of women of color who are missing or end up dead. There's similar bills that are happening here in New York State. There is legislation that would create a statewide task force that would kind of urge more urgency into missing cases, but also looking into why are women of color who go missing labeled as runaways in the first place. That is obviously going to detract from enough attention from law enforcement to go look for them. And even, and crucially enough, when it comes to media coverage, a lot of media, whether it's news or paper or print or digital, they may not recover it if they feel that the person, if the reasoning for that person's disappearance is because of whether it's truancy or it's runaway. So there's a lot of things on both a federal level and a local level that is hoping to look at, hey, why is this such a silent epidemic? But also, what is that going to take? And talking to people who are kind of on the ground with this, they want to see really kind of an expansive, whether it's dispelling myths, whether it's clearing up these discrepancies and disproportionate rates. It's to just look at when someone goes missing, how can we improve the process of their recovery?
Talking to several sources that are close to this matter, I've heard that said before, listen, when you talk about this issue, it seems as though the stereotypes are there. A person's a runaway. They're not, the truancy issues. It's really not that serious. They'll come up in a day or two. And the fact is, many times, these people don't return. They're still on the missing list. Let's look at New York State's numbers for a minute. We have 606 current list of missing persons, 11 of those coming out of the borough of the Bronx, 9 being persons of color. Also, according to most recent state data, the largest single group of missing children involves black females ages 13 and up. Literally almost 30%, 29.2% of all cases reported. And, there is legislation that's being done that we want to talk about. You talked about the legislation that's being done. It was Bronx City Council person Althea Stevens who proposed the legislation about these missing girls, and then also having that label taken away of being runaway. Where do we see this going? Because we know that there's legislation out there. How quick can we see some attention to the legislation and possibly some legislation that's enacted into law?
That's a good question. I think, obviously, depending on what the makeup of Congress is going to be, in the next, couple of days or weeks as we figure out, and also the runoff, I would say that this, in terms of figuring out the issues with, this silent disparity, it seems to be a bipartisan effort. There seems to be, there's raw data that, you can't really ignore when you look at it. And there's a lot of admittance that there needs to be something done with how missing persons cases are dealt with. Also, the reliability of missing persons data isn't exactly reliable for a lot of people. There's a lot of undercounting on the women of color who go missing, related to obviously some of the implicit biases and reasons for maybe why someone, or explanations of why someone was missing in the first place. It's gonna be interesting to see how it's going to progress. I would, when I talked to John Bischoff, who works for the Missing Children Division, he said that, they really would like to see kind of things start to happen really in the next couple of months, you know, even maybe to the next year of just kind of getting more attention rolled out. But really, one of the big things that's going to happen, even if legislation's in place, is for law enforcement to take it seriously. And that means that if, you know, a family, you know, if it's, you know, a woman of color who's going missing, it's being believed that, hey, they went missing and we need you to look for them. Rather than in some cases, people are saying that, you know, it's kind of pushed, as you mentioned, it's being kind of pushed aside, or they're going to come back in one day. And he said that, you know, any amount of legislation isn't going to be able to fix that. So that's something that needs to be fixed. And I think that's kind of where these task force measures come into place. It's going to be able to examine what is the breadth, what is the amount of access and resources that, you know, local departments can do to be able to recover, you know, missing persons, and also, you know, the volume of people who are missing in various states. Because in some areas where, you know, Indigenous women have gone missing, you know, Washington State, for example, you know, they were telling me that, you know, lack of Wi-Fi access, lack of, you know, central hubs of public safety make it a really easy area for people to be preyed upon and to be taken from their areas. So there's a lot of kind of hands-on efforts that are going to have to be taken in the next couple of years to kind of drive down a really, really disturbing rate of disappearances.
I know, Robbie, you'll be following this, and of course we'll follow you as well, and also we'll be staying connected on this so that way we can really put some light on a very harrowing situation when it comes to missing people. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Anytime.
All righty. Now, for more information, you can follow Robbie on Twitter at Robbie_Sequeira. Also, don't go anywhere. We will be back with more Open right after this.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
Thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
And we are back. The Flag Award for Teaching Excellence Award recognizes and celebrates extraordinary public school teachers who inspire learning through creativity, passion, and commitment. An individual, I should say an independent jury, will select the finalists from those who are nominated based on numerous factors, with a strong emphasis placed on the student experience. Joining us now to share more details is the co-president of the Flag Award for Teaching Excellence, Risa Daniels. And Risa, glad to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. So, excited about the Flag Awards. Tell me about the nomination process.
Sure. So it's a multi-stage process. The first stage is we request that students, parents of students, colleagues, principals, really anyone who has knowledge of the teacher's role in the classroom can nominate someone with a simple form that can be found on our website, flagaward.org/nominate. And basically, we just ask them to tell us, why are you nominating this teacher? Why have they impacted your life? And then from there, we ask the teacher to fill out further forms, which includes more detailed information about their teaching practice. And then we narrow down from that list to a group of semifinalists who get interviewed, who we talk to their principals, who we review supplementary materials, their resumes, et cetera. And then we present it to our independent jury, who then picks the final winners.
Amazing. And so when you think about the fact this is a long process, how long does this process take to get from the place of nomination all the way to award recognition?
Yep. So we the nomination window is open now, and we won't announce winners until the very end of the school year. So we interview every single teacher who makes it as a semifinalist, and so it's definitely a long process.
A long process indeed. For you, the opportunity to recognize teachers, it's very important. I think that teachers get recognized, but why is it for you to make the decision to say, hey, we want to recognize teachers?
Teachers are doing so much work that's going underappreciated, underrecognized, and we really wanted to shine a spotlight on those teachers that are going above and beyond. Teachers put in so much of their own resources, whether that's time and energy outside of their 9 to 5 or really just actual monetary resources into their teaching practices. And a lot of times it's just taken for granted. So we wanted to create this award to have, recognize these amazing teachers, but also encourage people in their own lives to pause and think about who's an amazing teacher in their own life and maybe take 5 minutes and thank them. And so if not only the winners of this award, but a couple of other teachers along the way get appreciated and recognized as well, it's definitely a job well done.
Yeah. You have so many teachers out there that you talk about the nomination process. You got to interview a bunch of them. I'm sure the applications continue to come in. What is it, and what is the criteria that you're really looking for that makes the difference for that teacher that's going to get that award?
Yeah, it's a great question because we see so many teachers that are so great, and it's really, this award really is the teachers that are outstanding, the once-in-a-lifetime teacher that students will be talking about 10, 20, 30 years down the line. There's a whole, on our website, we have these specific criteria, these criteria that gives more details on like what specifically we're looking for. But essentially, as an overview, we're looking for teachers that are very innovative, that are recognizing students at all levels in their classroom and really empowering them and seeing the potential in each and every one of those students, making an impact on the student and the school community, and sometimes even the larger community of teachers and parents outside of the school, and having long-lasting effects on all of those different levels. And then ones who are just really devoted to the position, to the classroom, but also to themselves, bettering themselves for their education and really acting as role models to the students, to those around them.
You talked about the CREATE criteria, and for those who may not know, CREATE is an acronym, and there's some things that go along with it. C, Chance talks about challenges. R, reaches. E, embraces. A, acknowledges. T, teaches. And E, engages. And so if you have somebody that can do that, then I think a nomination is worthy. And how many nominations do you end up getting from people?
Over 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got to get that down between the time of now all the way up until June.
Yeah.
So how
we go
many
from
people?
1,000 to about somewhere between 30, 35 semifinalists. And then we have one grand prize winner from each of the boroughs. And those winners get $25,000. But we also have 10 finalists who will also receive $10,000. So it's quite a number of people and teachers out there who can really benefit from this award.
It's an opportunity to really be recognized, and also the monetary value. But I think it's a great thing. Sometimes you're being nominated even by peers, right? That people are being nominated by fellow teachers, and so it's a great recognition when you have the opportunity to be acknowledged by your peers.
Definitely, and especially a lot of principal nominations as well. And so having the principal really take the time to identify those leaders in their schools is really great. We love receiving those.
This is going on right here in New York City, but what about outside of New York? I understand there could potentially be some plans for you to expand this.
Yeah, that would be a goal of ours for sure. We would love to see the Flag Award for Teaching Excellence in cities all across the United States. Right now, it's a really small team. Myself and my co-president, Laura Torsky, basically run the whole award. And so capacity-wise, we're sticking to New York City for the near future, but that's definitely an ultimate goal.
Yeah. And you talked about just the two of you really taking it and really holding on to it and getting it where it needs to be across the timeline. What's it like for you between now and June? I mean, are you stressed out? How's it going?
Well, so now we're in, I think this is our 4th year. So we feel like we have it down pat. The first year was definitely a little bit of fly by the seat of our pants but from the inception of the idea of the award, which was the brainchild of Glenn and Amanda Furman, to when we actually launched was only a couple of months. So we really hit the ground running and learned a lot on the way. But I think year 4, we feel pretty good about how things are going to run, and we have the process pretty streamlined.
Yeah, we've been following you for years. I remember when we first did our first segment talking about the Flag Awards, and you've seen tremendous growth. For you, what's the most rewarding thing out of all of this?
Well, actually, this past summer was the first time we were actually able to do a in-person gathering of all the past year's winners, semifinalists, finalists, and grand prize winners since the inception of the award in one place in person, because COVID had really made that impossible in years past. And just seeing everyone gathering and teachers meeting teachers and talking about, oh, you do this in your classroom, I'd actually love to do that. Maybe we could do a field trip, or maybe we can innovate together. Seeing the connections that were made, I think that was one of the best things that's come out of this experience for me.
Wow. Well, it's amazing that you are 4 years in and still counting, and the numbers continue to rise. Great work that's being done, Risa, and congratulations to you and your staff for really getting it done, for those who are nominated, and of course those who win. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you so much for helping spread the award.
All righty. Well, I want our viewers to know now, if you want more information, don't hesitate. Visit the website at flagaward.com. Then also follow them on social media at Flag Award. We have come to the end of our show today, and I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us. Most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast on Optimus Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And, of course, a brand new episode of Open. You want that? Well, come back on Friday morning. My girl, Rena Valentine, will give you arts and entertainment. This wraps up this episode for Open. I'm Daren Jaime. Make sure to keep this channel wide open. We say take care and God bless.